Well, as much fun as it is to talk Philly sports every week, it's also nice to mix in a little conversation about music once in a while. And this guy can certainly talk about both. He is a singer-songwriter from the Philly area originally, who happens to be a lifelong Phillies fan as well. Let's talk to Chuck Brodsky. Hey, Chuck, how are you, man?
I'm good, Chet. How are you?
Very good, very good. Hey, I want to ask you, when people go to your website, the aptly named chuckbrodsky.com, it says you are genuine, quirky, and rootsy. I have no doubt you're genuine, but what makes you quirky?
Well, I'm not writing songs that I think people typically would write. I don't write a lot of love songs or songs about me personally. I tell a lot of stories. I look for oddball characters or oddball tales, things that haven't been written about before. So I think that's a bit quirky.
Nice. My research led me to discovering that in 2019, you were inducted into the Philadelphia Jewish Sports Hall of Fame. I'm guessing that's for your musical achievements and not your athletic prowess, but maybe I'm wrong.
It's for my music, yes.
That's a nice honor, though.
It's a great honor. It's amazing. I was inducted with Howie Roseman, Eagles GM, and a fellow that played for the Boston Bruins.
Was that the year Jason Stark went in, or was that a different year?
I think it was the year after.
Okay. You know, the funny thing is, I saw you had a photo of Jason somewhere, and I saw he did a nice forward for you somewhere. And I was actually just talking to him the other night before I had realized that connection with you. Great guy. Love Jason Stark. Big fan of his.
Wonderful, wonderful human being. I actually sang at the after party when he was inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Oh, wow.
That was great fun. I've known Jason for years and meet up with him down in spring training, and sometimes he's able to make it to some of my shows with his wife, Lisa.
Yeah, we've had him on Philly Press Box Radio 3 or 4 times, and we'll do so again, I think, in February, so that'll be cool. Hey, you've written and recorded a bunch of baseball songs. We'll get to that in just a minute, but I'm guessing that your father, Frank Brodsky, whom I had the pleasure of meeting last April, had a hand in you becoming a big Phillies fan at a young age. Is that right?
Absolutely. He used to take me to Connie Mack Stadium probably from the time I was 3 years old until the very last game ever played there we were at. We knocked our seats off the hinges and still have them.
Oh, wow. And I know that for many years you have met up in Florida, I guess the Clearwater area primarily these days, for spring training. You still do that?
We do. Yeah. Mom started joining us a couple years ago. So we have another fella in our party, and we go to 5 or 6 games every year. And I stick around and play a couple of shows while I'm down there. It's great fun.
Any other specific or, unique memories you have as a kid regarding the Phillies?
Well, seeing Dick Allen play, he still is my favorite baseball player of all time. And I was just a little kid at the time when he was playing for the Phillies. And I distinctly remember how half the stadium would boo him while, the other half absolutely loved him. But those are probably my biggest memories, although certainly listening to Harry Callis and Richie Ashburn together and before that by Psalm, those are some wonderful memories. And in fact, when I moved to North Carolina and I was looking at the very first place I was thinking about moving to, I had to make sure that I was able to pick up. Back then it was 12:10 a.m. while I carried the Phillies game. I had to make sure that I could pick that up down here in Asheville before I would commit to moving to that place. And I literally sat out in my car in the evening. And when I realized I could pick up the station, I said, okay, I'll move here, because this was pre-internet. So it meant a lot to me to, be able to pick up Phillies games at night and listen to Harry and Whitey.
All right, your many baseball songs. An official at the National Baseball Hall of Fame called you baseball's troubadour, poet laureate. Nice. You've performed 3 or 4 times there in Cooperstown. You recorded 2 full albums of baseball ballads, as you call them. And there were a couple that jumped out at me right away as a Phillies fan, including this one from 2002 about the guys you were just talking about, Whitey and Harry.
Hey, Whitey man, I miss you. When I listen to the Phillies, and there's Harry going on without you. For the first time since I was 7,
That's very cool, Chuck. And by the way, this Harry and Whitey bobblehead, one of my prized possessions. I bet you have it too. So apparently you're much beloved at the Baseball Hall of Fame. Not only have you performed there, like I said a few times, 18 of your baseball songs have been enshrined in the Hall's sound recording library. That's pretty cool.
It's now up to 22.
Oh, wow. So can we say you're in the Baseball Hall of Fame?
Well, I don't like to stretch things, but my songs are in the sound recording library.
Hey, you and I are in pretty much the same general age group. We are AARP worthy, which means we've had, fond memories of a certain controversial Philly slugger. In fact, you mentioned him earlier, said he's your favorite player, one of my favorites too. What was it that made you such a fan of Richie or Dick Allen?
Well, besides his natural talent, I think I was very sensitive even as a 5, 6, 7-year-old to the racism of the day. And I understood he was being treated unfairly by the fans and by the media. And it bothered me a lot as a kid, and it probably made me empathize with him and love him even more.
And all of that leads us right into another song of yours about the guy we just talked about, and it's the song Letters in the Dirt.
Me and you, we never booed Richie Allen. And I never understood why people did. He hit a homer every time he stepped up to the plates. That's what I remember as a kid. Richie in the field out there by first base, the target of some mighty foul words. With his shoes he'd scrawl between the pitches. Boo, great big letters in the dirt.
That's good stuff right there, Chuck. Man, I'm sure hoping this is finally the year, because they are voting again, that Dick gets into the Hall of Fame.
I hope so too. It's way overdue, in my opinion, way overdue.
Yeah. I got to see him, as you did, at Connie Mack Stadium. I don't know if it's true or not, but I think I did see him hit a home run, and he hit some, majestic shots. He was like must-see TV when, the games were on. And getting to see him in person, certainly a memory for me. Hey, I should note that both of those songs, Letters in the Dirt and Whitey and Harry, are on the first of your 2 baseball ballads albums. There's also a second one that has songs about Roberto Clemente, Harry Carey, and even the White Sox Disco Demolition Night. How many songs have you written about baseball, Chuck?
23 so far, and I've got a few starts on some others.
So there might be a number 3, volume 3?
I hope to put out a third one. I really do. I'm only one song away from having enough to do it.
Hey, by the way, on the album cover, you're wearing a jersey number 28. Any particular reason for that number?
Well, that was my dad's jersey during Dream Week. He did Dream Week 5 times years ago. And when I was headed off for the photo shoot, at the last second, it occurred to me that some of Dad's gear might look really nice in some of these photos. So I went down, grabbed his old catcher's equipment and his old Dream Week uniform, and we went out to the Reading Phillies stadium and used the locker room there and took those nice shots.
By the way, I want to mention your dad, just a super guy. I did have a nice chat with him back in April. He's what, 90 or 91 now?
I think he's 91. Yeah.
Yeah, and seems to be in pretty good shape too. By the way, numbers, Phillies who have worn number 28 include currently Alec Boehm, Vince Velasquez, Jason Worth, Mitch Williams for a bit before he went to 99, Shane Raleigh, Tyler Green, Sparky Lyle, Art Mahaffey, and Kurt Simmons. That's quite a list.
It's a great list.
One other song I want to ask you about. I know it's one that gets a lot of attention for good reason. The Ballad of Eddie Klepp. Tell me about that.
Well, it's actually the very first historical baseball song that I ever wrote, and it involved some help from the Baseball Hall of Fame. This predated the internet, and I thought that I wanted to write a song about Jackie Robinson. I went down to the old Borders bookstore in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, and was thumbing through a book on Jackie, and I stumbled on a little footnote about this fella named Eddie Klepp, who was the first white man to ever play in the Negro Leagues. And I thought, there's my story right there. But that, like I said, it predated the internet. I didn't know where I could possibly pick up information for this story. And my dad suggested that I contact the Baseball Hall of Fame. So I phoned, not even knowing that there was a research department there. And the director of the department, Tim Wiles, happened to answer my call. And when I asked him if he knew who Eddie Klepp was, he said, no, who was he? And when I told him what little I knew, his answer was, that sounds like it would make a great poem or song. And Tim became a great ally of mine for all of the songs on that first Baseball Ballads album. By the time the second album came along, the internet had been developed and you could Google things, and I didn't need his help as much. But for all of the songs on my first Baseball Ballads album, Tim sent me a wealth of background information on the subjects I was writing about.
And I think he's the guy who named you baseball's troubadour poet laureate, right?
Right.
Hey, did I see that you do a lot of concert tours in Ireland and Scotland most years?
Well, they're not concert tours. They're fan tours. I take 22 people with me, and I do them through 2 separate companies, but the itineraries are really beautiful and well-honed, and they're music tours. So every night we have music, either private concerts at our hotel from some serious major league artists, or we'll go to pubs and hear traditional Irish or Scottish music. And a couple of times on each tour, I do private concerts for the group as well. But I take 22 people on each tour. We have a full-time guide that travels with us, and they're wonderful tours. I've done about 30 of the Ireland tours over the years, and I've done 6 or 7 of the Scotland tours.
My wife and I visited Ireland and Scotland a few years ago, and we'll be going back in 2025. So can't wait for that. Hey, you are living in North Carolina these days, but you're in the Philly area for the next couple of weeks with a couple of concerts on your near-term schedule. Tell us about what you have planned.
Well, Friday, I'll be in Bethlehem at a wonderful folk music venue called Godfrey Daniels. It's kind of last of a dying breed, a real traditional listening room folk club. They've been around for a long, long time. They're nonprofit. I love everything about it. And then on Saturday the 30th, I'll be in Villanova to play the Musical Layers house concert. And I think this will be possibly the 22nd straight year, minus the 2 COVID years that I've done this on Thanksgiving weekend. And it's always a great time. It's a great turnout. She has a large house and can seat a lot of people. So if anybody's interested in coming to either of those shows, they could find the information on my website, chuckbrodsky.com.
So at your concerts, to be clear, I'm assuming it's mostly non-baseball songs with a few baseball tunes thrown in?
That's usually how it goes. I'll try to do 2 or 3 baseball songs at least in every show, but I also try not to overdo it for the people that don't particularly care about baseball. Although I do have to say that the songs are more people songs anyway. They just happen to be set in the realm of baseball, but they're really more about the people and the characters involved than the sport of baseball.
Well, as expected, Chuck, this was lots of fun. Folks, check out this website for information on all of his music, concert dates, and all sorts of other fun stuff. A lot of good pictures on there, too. That website, chuckbrodsky.com. And as it says right there on the website, he's quirky and rootsy, but as we all just discovered, he's also pretty genuine as well. Thanks a bunch, Chuck.
My pleasure, Chet. Thank you for having me.